Okay, shall we get started? Good. In today's presentation, I first want to give you some important background and also tell you an interesting personal story. Then the next point would be to establish a proper definition of religion. Then we need to look at the laws of science. And after that, we will go and evaluate evolution, the claims of evolution against the laws of science. Good? And lastly, we want to combine everything in a portfolio and show you the true colors of the evolution story. If I show you a slide like this, that means a new section is to be started, and we might take a break or two during these section transitions. A burgundy slide like this will show a textbook or a dictionary definition, whereas a green or turquoise colored slide shows an important quote that I want to proclaim to you. A dangerous slide like this shows information from an evolutionist's perspective, so be wary and don't believe everything you see on this slide. Lastly, a scripture slide with a scroll background is to proclaim truth. So let's start with some truth. Psalm 33, by the word of Yahweh were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. And if I look up at the heavens and the galaxies and just the vastness of it all, I can clearly see that the heavens declare the glory of Elohim. And if I look at a thunderstorm, the clouds and the skies, I can clearly see that the skies proclaim the work of his hands, Psalm 19. However, evolutionists say there is no creator, just like that. And can you almost feel the hardness of their hearts having to say that, and that being their excuse? And why can't they see it? 2 Corinthians gives one reason: the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. So they have blinkers on and they can't see spiritual things. When they look at the thunderstorm and everything around us, they attribute everything just to natural processes and chance, and obviously the miracle ingredient of millions and millions of years. But this excuse reminds me of a story in the Bible. Remember the story where Moses came down from the mountain and he was abhorred by them worshipping an idol, a three-dimensional statue of a calf, the golden calf. And when Aaron was confronted by Moses, he wanted to dodge the confrontation. He wanted to dodge the responsibility. And Aaron made this extremely weak excuse. Aaron says something like, I took the gold and I cast it into the fire, and out came this golden calf. Out popped this golden calf. And you go, that's unbelievable. Even a toddler would frown at that excuse. And they put this in the Bible? Well, surprise. My guess is roughly 2/3 of the Bible is full of the mistakes that people made, the sins and the disregard for their Creator. And so we need to learn from these mistakes and actually see ourselves make the same mistakes. Us humans are very prone to make this kind of excuse. Let me show you. Evolution also has a golden calf. Their excuse is of the same caliber. They say something like this. They dodge their responsibility. They don't want to be accountable, and they say, no, well, it just happened like this. There was a big fire, and they'll be angry at me if I say a big fire, but that's the Big Bang, okay? There was a Big Bang, and out came everything that we see around us, just like that. And one would go, really? Isn't this a lame excuse? So, I want to show you and I want to contrast the dispute for you. Scripture teaches in Revelation 4 that when John saw a vision of heaven, he saw these marvelously created beings, and they bowed down and they said, "Holy, holy, holy is Yahweh Tsevaot, the Lord of hosts." And later in the chapter it says, "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power." Why is that? Why, may I ask? What's the reason for all of this holy, 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 the holiness of the Creator? Because thou hast created all things. It's stated plainly in the Bible that the foundation of the worthiness of Yahweh is that He created everything. Whereas the evolutionists teach or scoff, and they say, "Thou art not worthy, O Lord," half sarcastically, "to receive any glory, nor honor, nor power." And why is that? Because thou, sarcastically, has not created anything. And that's the reason why you are not worthy. So this is a very, very serious matter and a very serious dispute. And the dispute is made out to be a religion versus science dispute. Let's read this quote from Wikipedia. "The dispute is between those who, despite contrary evidence, they're so slow to catch on with reality, support a naive creationist view based upon their stubborn religious beliefs, versus us, clever evolutionists who accept the fact of evolution as supported by scientific, rigorous science, scientific consensus." Is this true? Is this a true statement of the dispute? Today I will show you, no, it is not true. I will show you that evolution, in fact, is a religion. And if you think that is harsh, I'll stick my neck out even further. And I'll tell you that evolution is a dishonest religion based on lies and misrepresentations. Evolutionists use fancy rhetoric, big terminology, and they use their evolutionary jargon to confuse people and make them think that evolution is true. But today, I will lay this out in very simple language. We'll look at these practical experiments to demonstrate the laws of science, and I'll make it very clear to you that through evaluating evolution against the laws of science, we will prove that evolution is a religion. Alright, my name is Piet van Rensburg, but English people mostly pronounce my name as Piet van Rensburg, which is also fine. And I put my qualifications on the screen. I normally don't mention my qualifications to people, but evolutionists always claim that no modern, common sense individual would believe in creation. That no trained, educated, or trustworthy person believes in creation. And that's another blatant lie. So I'll show you many scientists today who believe in creation based on a truthful conclusion rooted in science. So, let me tell you the story of a qualifications audit that once happened at my previous workplace. And this came about because 3 earlier institutions merged together and formed this massive comprehensive university, and there were rumors that some of the staff members had gotten their jobs using fraudulent qualifications. That's quite a serious allegation, and that was quite a threat to the public image of this newly formed institution. And so the management decided they'll take out the money and they'll hire a top well-known auditor company to come and audit our qualifications. And so the pressure was on us. We had to go report each staff member, take our qualifications, show our faces to these auditors, and let them screen us and check for fraudulent qualifications. So on a specific day, specific time, there was a building allocated for each campus, and you had to go to this building and present your qualifications. So on the day, I go to this building where I'd never been before, and there was this long corridor. I remember the chairs on the one side, and double doors closed at the end of the corridor. And no signs or welcoming party, no morning tea, no coffee given to us. And we were all a little bit tense, and we didn't know all the faces, the new faces, and we were sitting there waiting, not knowing what to expect, waiting. Looked on our watches, and 9 o'clock came and went, and the different people had their qualifications. I brought them along, some behind framed glass, and some had them in these tubes, these cardboard tubes. I had mine in a folder, and so we sit there and we wait, uncertain of what's going to happen. How will they check our qualifications, and what is this all about? And so about 8 minutes past 9, I guess, out bashed this strict Indian gentleman, very blunt, didn't greet us, he just said, "Who was first?" And so the lady in front got up, she went in, and they closed the doors. So behind closed doors, they did their thing, and we sat there. Wonder what they'll do. How will they check our qualifications? The uncertainty built and built up. And so after about 7 or 8 minutes, I guess, the doors went open again. And the strict Indian gentleman said, "Next." So I got up, and I went in with him, and he didn't say much, he didn't greet me properly, he just grabbed the folder from my hands, and he said to me, "Sit down." And I looked around in this big venue, and I looked at the staff members, and I looked at the computers, and I watched him going to a photocopy machine there in the corner, and he made photocopies of my qualifications. He came back, shoved it back into my hands, and so I sat there not knowing what to expect. What will he ask me? What will he do? So he sits behind his computer, and he presses some keys there, and he looks up a few things, and he says to me, "Put your left index finger on the fingerprint scanner." Now that's the right finger, right? But he said, "Put your left index finger on the fingerprint scanner." So I become agitated. What? A fingerprint? Are they treating us like criminals here? I've never done a fingerprint for anything except maybe a passport. What are they going to do with our fingerprints? Check for criminal records or something? And as I was arguing and becoming frustrated, wanting to confront this person, I suddenly realized that because English was not my mother tongue, I didn't know which finger was my left index finger. So instead of confronting this strict Indian gentleman, I went into a bit of a panic. And I go, left index finger, left index finger, left index finger. Okay, it's not this hand, eliminate this hand, left index finger. Let's start eliminating. I'm sure they call this the pinky or the little finger. And this must be the ring finger. It's got the ring on. And I'm sure this is the thumb. That's the middle finger. I hope this is the right answer. And I just sort of pray a quick prayer, and I put my finger on the fingerprint scanner, try to keep a straight face, and try to just be relaxed. And so he scanned my fingerprint, and he said nothing. And he looked up and he said, "You may go." And I'm all disillusioned. What was this all about? And so I leave the room, and I'm off back to work. So why am I telling you this long story? What is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is judgment is coming. The evolutionists will one day get to sit in front of the auditor. They will get to stand in front of the judge, the creator of all creation. And let's just read Romans 1. They glorified him not as Elohim, as creator, neither were they thankful, but became vain in their imaginations. Take note, imagination. Professing themselves to be wise, professing themselves to have many qualifications, they became fools. What do I mean with this? What's the moral of the story? These evolutionists will one day stand before the auditor and he will tell them, let's do a test. Put your left index finger on the fingerprint scanner. And what did they do during their lives? As scientists, through a process of elimination, they eliminate all sorts of incorrect answers to arrive at a solid conclusion. So they go and they say, well, we know for a fact there is no creator. We're 100% sure of that. And we've looked into various options, and this evolution theory looks like a grand theory. We'll go for that. We'll go along with that one. And they put the wrong finger on the fingerprint scanner, buzz, and they are wrong. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, largely because of the process of elimination. Right, I'm pleased to show you scientists who got it right. This scientist, already in the 80s, could see right through the smokescreen, and he could select the correct finger for the fingerprint scanner. He says, I believe that one day the Darwinian myth will be ranked the greatest deceit in the history of science. Did that just sink in? The next scientist, already in the 1960s, he said, the Darwinian theory of descent has not a single fact to confirm it in the realm of nature. It is not the result of scientific research, but purely the product of imagination. And later in this presentation, we'll look at some science and we'll check the evolution theory against real science. Some more scientists. This recent petition was signed by scientists who publicly announced that they do not agree with Darwinian evolution. They put their hands up and they said, we disagree. Evolution, Darwinian evolution, is nonsense. So all the fields of science are represented here. The first one, Emeritus Prof of Chemistry. Next one, Emeritus Professor of Biology, Professor of Dendrology. Lower down, Professor of Geology, and they're all here, all the fields of science. So let's just count the names, or roughly do a rough count of the names. Page 1, page 2, and so, by the way, about approximately 14 names per page. Page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's already 400 names. And I'll put a link on the screen for you if you want to follow it up and look at it yourselves. Page 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. More than 20 pages of scientists who say evolution is nonsense. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 pages, more than 1,000 top qualified scientists, mostly from the USA, who petition against evolution. And there is the link, Descent from Darwin, descentfromdarwin.org. By the way, does this now prove that evolution is a religion? No, not at all. That was just for interest's sake. But let's get back to business. How do we prove that evolution is a religion? To prove this, we first need a firm textbook or a firm dictionary definition of religion. . Can anyone give me a good definition for the term religion? If I have to explain it in my own words, I would say each person, as he or she grows up, you get to a certain age where you start noticing things around you. You look at the stars and the galaxies, and it's so amazing. And you even look at animals and plants, and you look at yourself, and you almost go, well, I am here. You almost want to pinch yourself and say, how did I get here? And that question of asking, where did it all come from? How did it all happen? Is a very fundamental part of religion. So, does evolution perhaps speak to this? Does evolution perhaps explain where everything came from? And does evolution perhaps qualify as a religion? Well, immediately we will get objections. No! Evolution says there is no God. How can it be a religion? Or the second one. No, evolution is science. How can it be a religion? And the third one. No, evolution regards natural causes only. How can it be a religion? Now that is a very important objection, and let's for that reason first look at the definition of natural versus supernatural. The supernatural, or a miracle, is an event that appears inexplicable by the laws of nature, so the event breaks the laws of science, and so is held to be supernatural in origin. Okay, that's miracle or supernatural. On the other hand, naturalism as a philosophy is a scientific account of the world, supposed to be a scientific account of the world in terms of causes and natural forces that outrightly rejects all spiritual, all supernatural, all purpose type explanations. So only science allowed and no miracles allowed. So this third objection is very important to remember. It's called naturalism. Naturalism, keep that in mind. So let's get back to an official definition for the term religion. This dictionary says, a religion is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, where everything came from. Especially, take note, especially when considered as the creation of a superhuman, that means a supernatural, agency or agencies. Alright, that's one dictionary. Let's go to the next one. A religion is a belief in and reverence for a supernatural power or powers. See that? Supernatural is very important component of that definition. Regarded as creating and governing the universe, where it all came from, and us humans. Another one. Religion is a belief in, or a worship of, or obedience to a supernatural power or powers. And Oxford Dictionary has a very similar definition. You can have a look at that URL if you are interested. Okay, so let's just make a summary of all these dictionary definitions and see if you agree with my summary, if this is accurate, see if this is fair, and to the point. I've summarized it as follows. A religion is a belief system which explains the origin of the universe and us humans. How? By means of supernatural causes. Is that a fair summary of what the dictionary said? Happy with that? Good. However, evolution claims to reveal the truth about the origin of the universe and us humans by means of scientific, natural causes only. And that's how evolution tries to distinguish itself from religion. Keep that in mind. A very important summary page, and I'll show it again later in the presentation. So, we now need to cross over and go and have a look at the laws of science. I have a few demonstration experiments here, and we'll show you practically what the laws of science mean. Good? So the first one is called law of biogenesis. Biogenesis means life only comes from life. In all scientific experiments we've ever done, we always see that life can only come from life. So a very good example, the canned food industry has produced billions and billions of tins of canned food over the past few decades. So life only comes from life. Although we have all the perfect ingredients for life in those cans of food, the ingredients are there, the proteins are there, we never see life coming from dead cells. So once the food is sealed inside, and the cells are killed by means of a high temperature, they boil the cans, they put it in a container which boils with water, they kill the cells, and no life can come from a dead cell. Life only comes from life. Okay, let's go on to the conservation of matter. Conservation of matter, the law of conservation of matter says matter cannot be destroyed or created. In science experiments, we have never seen matter be destroyed or created, and there's a small exception with radioactive decay, which I'll discuss just now. So if you take a glass pot and you put, say, 2 liters of water in there, and 1 liter is boiled off, is that matter just destroyed? Did it disappear? Well, it disappeared from the eye. You can't see the 1 kilogram of water, but we know it drifts in the air. It's water molecules that are suspended in the air. It may form part of a cloud at some stage. It may condensate somewhere to form dew or rain, and the water cycle teaches us a lot about the conservation of matter. Another important one, conservation of energy. So over here I want to show you the first demonstration experiment with this balloon. So I'll blow this balloon up and watch my face, see if I go red in my face. So I put work and energy into this balloon. Let me take 2 hands. So I work with my cheek muscles and I work with my chest muscles and I put energy into this balloon. And the energy is stored here. Do you agree? So how is it stored? Is it stored in the air or is it stored in the elastic balloon material? Mostly in the elastic material. And if I let the balloon go, what happens to the energy? It's then released again. So I'll let it go, and it lands on the floor. It's got no energy left, and all the energy is spent now. Do you agree? But where did the energy go? Where is that energy? Because the law of conservation of energy says energy cannot be created or destroyed. Where did it go? So the balloon had to push through the air, and there's air drag over the surface of the balloon. So, and then the air gets twirled. So if the balloon goes past your head, you'll feel some wind. And so energy is spent to move the air around, to push it out of the way, and these twirling wind patterns are called eddy currents, and they dissipate the energy. So it slowly comes to a standstill. And why does it come to a standstill? Because the energy is dissipated into heat. So all energy, when it is wasted or dissipated, it turns into heat. Keep that in mind. And so before we go on to the next one, the conservation of mass and conservation of energy laws are often coupled together by scientists because through radioactive decay, one can sacrifice a little bit of mass for much energy. So it's better to group them together and to be accurate to say the law of conservation of mass energy, we cannot create or destroy mass energy combined. Okay? We spoke of air friction just now, so let's move on to the law of friction. And I have a object here that will spin if I give it enough angular momentum, if I spin it by hand. And you've all seen various forms and shapes of spinning tops. So let's just spin this one and see how long it lasts, how long the spinning lasts. So again, I gave the object energy, and it now has angular or spinning momentum, and at some stage it will stop and fall over. Right, you've all seen that. Now why does it stop and fall over? Why does it not spin or keep spinning forever? The law of friction. Every single moving object in the universe experiences friction, even if it is as faint as electromagnetic coupling between planets or galaxies. But this one has almost come to a standstill. And what actually stopped this spinning object? Which kinds of friction? So firstly, there's the actual surface friction where the object rubbed on the surface of the desk. And then also the air friction, so this would stir the air as it spins. Okay, so air friction. Two kinds of friction identified which causes this to stop. And I'd like to show you now that the Earth also has various kinds of friction. Did you know? So the first one is ocean friction. This picture is a compilation of a sequence of satellite images, and one can almost visualize the drag there at the equator where the circumference of the Earth is biggest, and one can see this eddy currents on the side, the circulating water currents which dissipate the energy, and so Earth has brakes. Another example of friction for planet Earth is air friction, and over here we can almost see the line there on the equator, the drag, and one can see these circulating patterns on the side. Those are actually cyclones, and the Earth's rotation actually drives weather patterns, and the energy is dissipated into small amounts of heat. So Earth has brakes. Let me show you another type of friction that Earth experiences. Magma friction. Now this image is of molten rock or lava that erupted from a volcano or similar, but that same molten rock under the crust of the Earth actually rotates and forms these circulating eddy current patterns. I've seen computer simulations of that which shows a very similar motion as the Earth rotates. So I've shown you three mechanisms of friction, three kinds of braking mechanisms that planet Earth experiences, and there are more. So let's leave it there and let's move on to the law of entropy. So the law of entropy is a very important one, and some scientists think of this as the most universal law of science, and therefore I want to spend some time on this. And the first one is Play-Doh. I want you to look at that picture, and I want you to see some beauty. Do you agree that if a toddler sees those three balls of clay, he or she would find it very attractive and would go for it and get involved? And we see beauty by observing or identifying order. So can you see order on that screen? The three balls are roughly the same size. They're shaped in a certain shape. And by the way, the coloring, does anybody here know of a family member or a friend who can make yellow coloring? Anybody? No? That's quite a skill. So skill is also perceived as beauty when we look at things around us, like a building or even nature. So the law of entropy states that if energy gets exchanged without any help or without any guidance, it will always cause disorder. Exchange of energy causes disorder. So let's do this quick demonstration experiment. I'll take a bit of Play-Doh from each container, and so some blue, some red, some yellow, and I will apply energy. So I'll do unguided energy, right? I'll just mix it and I'll just spend energy, mechanical energy on the Play-Doh. So if I spend energy without a plan, will it increase the order or decrease the order? It will decrease the order, or if we speak of disorder, disorder always rises when energy is exchanged. So do you agree? That's not very good looking. It's not very beautiful. It's not very ordered. and this is more chaotic. You agree with that? That's the law of entropy, and they also call this, scientists also call this the second law of thermodynamics. Now, more examples. Look at those toddlers. They have lots of energy, right? And they have lots of intelligence. Toddlers are super intelligent. But if you leave them to spend their energy, will they order the room or will there be chaos? Chaos, do you agree? Why? Because the energy was exchanged without a plan, without specific, careful guidance. And another room looks like this. This is the boys' room, and it seems like this room was unsupervised for probably 2-3 weeks, and energy was spent there, and chaos just increased. So the law of entropy states that if energy is exchanged without careful guidance, disorder will increase. Is that obvious? Is that clear? Good. How about this room? Do you see order in this room? The room is ordered and we can see it's tidied. And let's just sketch a few scenarios. Let's add some different forms of energy. How about some chemical energy? What would happen if I bring a container of acid, let's say 20 liters of 90% pure sulfuric acid, and we open it up and we just pour it out on the room over everything? Will that cause more order or chaos? Chaos, obviously. So, exchange of chemical energy without careful guidance, disorder. Let's bring in some mechanical energy. Let's say earthquake, shake the room. Will that cause order or disorder? Disorder. So, energy exchange which is not carefully guided creates disorder. That's a fact. That's a law of science. Let's try electrical energy. Let's say a massive amount of electrical energy. Let's say lightning bolt. Let's strike the room with a lightning bolt. Will that cause order? No, it won't work. So, like, shake your head and go, no, it won't work. And let's say, what if we bring in the magical ingredient of the evolutionists, time? Let's say slow energy, a little bit of sunshine, put translucent roof sheeting in for the venue. Let it sit there for 100 years. Will that cause more order or disorder? Disorder. So the ingredient of time or millions of years does not help and cannot reverse the law of entropy. The only thing which can reverse the law of entropy is careful, intelligent guidance of energy, where there is a plan and a purpose. Alright? Let's just see if you have been concentrating. Let's do a quick test, a multiple choice test. And let's see if you can get the right answer. Who tidied the room? A. 2 toddlers tidied the room. Anybody? No. Won't work. B. Anybody? The room tidied itself over time. Millions and millions of years. No. I agree. That's not the right answer. C. Someone with a plan had to tidy the room. Who votes for that one? Well done. You passed the test. You've been concentrating so far. So, with this someone answer, I'm actually hinting at creation. Who tidied? Who ordered the creation? Why do we see so much order? We know from science, for a fact, the second law of thermodynamics, or the law of entropy, we know for a fact it didn't happen through energy exchange without any guidance. The scriptures are clear. Exodus 20. For in how many millions of years? For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them. And remember, after working for 6 days, the Creator, Yahweh, rested on the 7th day to be an example for us. And when we keep the Sabbath, we honor Him as Creator, and we remind ourselves that He created everything, He ordered everything in 6 days. Right, now that we've covered the laws of science, let's move on to go and evaluate evolution against these laws of science. Just want to give you a reminder. A religion is a belief system which explains the origin of the universe and us humans by means of supernatural causes, whereas evolution claims to reveal the truth about the origin of the universe and us humans by means of scientific, natural causes only. Remember that contrast. So let's just sketch the evolution fairy tale. This is what they say. And the first step in the fairy tale is that long ago and far away there was a big explosion. And evolutionists get frustrated if we call it an explosion, but that's essentially what they claim. Before the explosion, there was no mass energy, and after the explosion, all the mass energy in the universe is present. Next step. According to them, this explosion caused objects and matter to move, obviously, and to spin. And according to them, this has been going on, this expansion and the spinning and moving of objects, galaxies and planets and stars, it's been going on for millions and billions of years. Next step. According to them, on Earth, somewhere, some time ago, long ago and far away, proteins just ordered themselves without any help from outside. And we'll go into details later. Let's move on. The next step in the evolution process is the first living cell, the first life form, just arrived by itself, just happened to form by chance, and their life originated, according to them. Next, upwards and onwards we march with evolution, and they reckon that this first life form eventually turned into a human over millions of years. So essentially they believe that mutations, that is DNA damage, caused the upward evolution to super intelligent mankind. And then many evolutionists believe that we are still evolving further, and that we are actually evolving into gods. And you won't see this in their journals and in their presentations, but it is generally known. I'll show you one quote. This expert in evolutionary psychology, or let's rather say evolutionary spirituality, says, believers in evolutionary spirituality often believe only a few humans are evolving to a higher stage, especially themselves, quite ironically. They believe they are essentially superior, the next step in evolution, the first buds of Homo Deus. How's that for arrogance and a perverted thought process? So, let's go and evaluate this evolution fairy tale, this sequence of evolutionary events, so-called events, against the laws of science. First, the Big Bang. This is not a photo of the Big Bang. This is just a photo of a galaxy to put something on the screen. But what is wrong with the claim of the Big Bang? Or what is wrong? How does the Big Bang break the laws of science? Which law of science is broken by the Big Bang fable? Remember, before the Big Bang, there was nothing. No mass and energy. After the Big Bang, we have all the mass and energy in the universe. So the biggest miracle in the universe happens, but it's claimed to be natural. The Big Bang just annihilates the laws of conservation of mass and energy. So is this science? Or is this not science? Let's look at a quote. This scientist, chief scientist of NASA, said, astronomers have not the slightest evidence for the supposed quantum production, that means nothing, everything, of the universe out of a primordial nothingness. Let's look at another quote. This scientist says the Big Bang represents the instantaneous suspension of all physical laws. So he says the laws of science are suspended when the Big Bang happens. The sudden abrupt flash of lawlessness that allowed something to come out of nothing, it represents a true miracle. So how is that for an acknowledgement by an evolutionist? He's actually being very accurate and honest here. So, to learn more about the Big Bang, I want to recommend this resource, this video by Spike Psaris, also a NASA engineer. And this series is titled What You Aren't Being Told About Astronomy, and Volume 2 discusses the Big Bang. So go and watch Volume 2, it's really worth your while. And also Volume 1 is very interesting. It discusses the planets and the solar system. So scan the QR code and go and watch these videos for extra information. Okay, let's move on to the second tenet of the evolution stages, millions and billions of years. What is wrong with millions and billions of years in terms of science? How does this claim or this fable break the laws of science? Which law of science is broken by this statement? Remember, the Earth has friction, the Earth has breaks in the oceans, breaks in the atmosphere, breaks under the crust of the Earth. So, what happened to the law of friction? How could the Earth have been spinning? Remember this spinning top? How could the Earth have spun for not 10,000 years, not 100,000 years, not 1,000,000 years, not tens of thousands of years, not hundreds of thousands of years? No, more than that. Not thousands of years, more than that. This is a fairy tale, folks. And what about radioactive dating? Many of you will be saying, but wait, haven't we proven through scientific experiments and radioactive dating that the rocks are millions and billions of years old? Surprise! No, we have not proven that. This scientist already in the 80s, like more than 4 decades ago, saw right through the smoke screens, and he said, there are gross discrepancies. The accepted dates, meaning for publication, to publish officially, are actually selected dates. They select the ones they want. This whole thing is nothing but 13th century alchemy. So he's completely disillusioned with this radiometric dating method. Let's look at another quote. This professor says in his article, we now have discussed so many things that can make radiometric dating go wrong. And by the way, the new isochrones method, they don't remedy the situation at all. That, I think, the weight of evidence of radiometric dating is nullified. How much weight does this professor think it carries? He says it carries 0 weight. Let's look at another quote. This scientist worked in these radiometric dating labs for many years. And he writes in his book, rocks gathered from the recently erupted Mount so-and-so in New Zealand, a volcanic mountain. So it erupted, let's say, 60, 70 years ago, and they know that the newly laid down layers are only a few decades old. They take the samples, send them in for radiometric dating, and what values do they get? And let me ask this. Is radiometric dating a scientific measuring instrument? The public might think so. But remember, any instrument that you make, be it if you make a new ruler or a new tape measure, you have to be able to calibrate that measuring instrument, put it next to a current accurate ruler, and go and make the tick marks, and then you know your new instrument is lined up to reality and you can trust it to measure. And measuring instruments have tolerances, error margins. So an instrument would say this as a plus minus 2% error margin, or a plus minus 5% error margin. Now let's look at the error margins for radiometric dating. Is this instrument 95% accurate or 98% accurate with just a 2% error margin, or is it slightly worse than that? Let's have a look. These relatively young rocks gave a potassium-argon date of 270,000 to 3.5 million years. Is that accurate? Did they hit the target? The target was 60 years. They didn't come close to the 60 years. It's way out there. And even amongst their measurements, the measurement fluctuation is between 270,000 and 3.5 million years. That's the width of the error margin. That's how wide their mistake margin is. Let's read on. A rubidium strontium date of over 133 million years, a samarium neodymium date of nearly 200 million years, and a lead date or lead dates of 3.9 billion years. So may I ask the question, at what kind of error margin do we stop calling something a scientific measuring instrument? Like if this is the target and 60 years is the correct answer, 100% error would mean 0 years, and 100% error in that direction would mean 120 years. Outside of that, can we call something with a bigger than 100% error margin a scientific measurement instrument? These dates on the screen actually represent something way out there, like kilometers away and kilometers wide. They are error margins in the order of like 1 million or 1 billion percent. Never mind the plus minus 100% target of a measuring instrument. So keep that in mind. And I also highly recommend this video by a geologist, ex-professor of geology, Dr. Emil Silvestra, and watch his video and he will explain more about the dating of rocks. Good, let's move on. And the next step in the evolution story is proteins that ordered themselves without any help. So, to simulate a protein and its formation by amino acids, I've written out this paragraph. Let's just read this paragraph for a background. We need a precise sequence of letters in order to simulate the possibility of a specific protein auto-assembling, without help, that is, out of 22 amino acids, whereas hundreds of amino acids compete for the chance to be included in the protein. But if one letter is incorrect, only one, the entire protein is faulty and cannot perform its job in the cell as was intended by the creator. So this paragraph simulates or mimics the complexity of a protein where each letter is one amino acid. How difficult is it to form one amino acid by chance? Let me show you something from the Bible. When Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, he sat them down for a meal, and let's read. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. They couldn't believe it. Why? Because they were highly intelligent. They knew that this was like a small miracle. And the statistical chances of that happening is 1 in roughly 40 million. So the first seat has a probability of 1 in 11 people landing on the first seat. Take away the 1, the next seat has a probability of 1 in 10 for the second seat. And so you carry on, and the probability is 1 in 11 factorial, 1 in 40 million almost. So 11 brothers is similar to arranging 11 atoms for an amino acid. So the chances of these letters forming, just the W itself and the E and the N, for each one, the chances of it that one forming by itself is roughly in the order of 1 in 40 million. Now, nothing prevents them from breaking down again, and nothing keeps them all together again. So the first E isn't fixed and ready for the second use and the third use. It's all a combination of 1 in 40 million compounded, right? That's just for the amino acids to be available. Now, take the amino acids as available. Let's say the letters are available now, massive miracle, and the rest of it is mimicked by Scrabble. So if I take a Scrabble set, our Scrabble set has English on the one side and Hebrew on the other side, but if we take a container and bring in more alphabets, like the Japanese alphabet, Aramaic alphabet, what else? I can't think of other alphabets now, but let's say we just take roughly 20 or 30 different alphabets, mix them all the letters into one container, and then we throw it out to see if we get a sequence form. Let me throw this out. This is only 2 languages, right? Is there a sentence? Is there a long word? You might find something like a letter A, which is a precise sequence, or a 2-letter word or a 3-letter word. But beyond 3 or 4, the chances of impossibility just rises exponentially, like we saw with Joseph's 11 brothers, and you will never find even a long word by chance if you mix 20 different alphabet sets and throw them somewhere to hopefully form some sequence. It won't happen. It's statistically impossible. It is utter foolishness to say that this 300-letter simulation of a protein happened by chance over millions of years. I also did the ASCII simulation where the ASCII letters represent the bulk of amino acids, but the ordinary letters, the English alphabet letters, are the ones we need for a protein. And you can see there's no chance of the English letters queuing up to form words or sentences. It's a big mess. It's a mixture. Randomness is the opposite of order. For evolutionists to say that randomness formed order is stupidity, almost. Sorry to be so blunt. Randomness is the opposite of order, and randomness does not form order. Which law of science is broken by this statement that proteins form by themselves? Remember the law of entropy? When we exchange energy, if things get mixed or moved, do they order by themselves? No, energy always creates disorder unless it is specifically guided. Like if I take the tray and I guide them into certain positions, I might get a word or a sentence if I work at it. But randomness will never create order. The second law of thermodynamics, also called the law of entropy. Right, let's read this quote. Person with 2 doctorates, double PhD, says, there is no known scientific procedure to generate life in the lab. So bring in the most clever people in the world, bring them into a protected environment, give them all the ingredients they want, and there is no procedure to generate life. Life only comes from life. Let alone by some unknown prebiotic mechanism, the probability of life forming from purely physical causes is 0. It's as plain and simple as that. Scientifically, we can say with accuracy, the probability is 0. Let's move on to this one. The first living cell just formed by itself. Which law or laws of science is broken by this claim of the evolutionists? On the screen you see a scanning electron microscope image, and the colors were added afterwards. But what I want to show you is that a cell is not a simple object. It's not a blob of matter. A cell is closer to a city with headquarters, with a massive library with information, where the DNA is stored, with boundaries, very well protected and guarded boundaries, with a communications network throughout the cell, factories in there, production lines. It's incredibly complex. To say that the first cell just arrived on its own by chance is orders of magnitude worse than saying the first protein arrived by itself without any help. Let's read this quote. A group of scientists tried to model the simplest single cell organism they could find. This was roughly 10, 12 odd years ago. They concluded, to model the simplest microbe in the world, you need 128 computers working in parallel. The depth and breadth of cellular complexity has turned out to be nearly unbelievable and difficult to manage. That's how complex the simplest cell is. Which law of science is broken by the claim that it happened by itself? Look at this quote. 10 years later, another team of scientists tried to simulate the simplest cell, and they concluded as follows. We have only a very rough idea of how even the simplest of those cells function. It's hard, to build a model if you don't know what Lego blocks go into it. The cell is still enigmatic. There may even be living tasks or functions essential for life that science is oblivious to. So these scientists were just being honest. After their attempt, they had to conclude it's out of our reach. We cannot do it. We do not understand it, and we don't know how to do it. That is how complex the simplest cell is. Which law of science is broken by this claim that the first cell just formed by itself without any help? Well, the same law of entropy, remember that? Things don't order by themselves. You need guided energy. But very important, the law of biogenesis. Remember the law of biogenesis? Even if we give you all the right ingredients and all the amino acids, life cannot happen by itself. We have never seen it happen, and we have never attained it. The law of biogenesis is ignored by that statement. This professor of molecular biology is an evolutionist. He says, the simplest living cell could not have arisen by chance. He's just being straightforward. This professor says, the origin of life is also a stubborn problem for science, with no solution in sight. In his opinion, it won't happen. We will never understand the complexity and how life originally formed. The scriptures give us a hint. Wait a minute. Matthew 19. Have you not read? Almost hinting at, are you ignorant? Did you not know that he who made at the beginning made them male and female? This did not happen by itself. We know that from the second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy. And another good scripture. Do you remember the law of biogenesis? Life only comes from life. Let's read this passage with that in mind. Genesis 2 verse 7. And Yahweh Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Did life perhaps originate from life in the Creator himself? Okay, another video, Unlocking the Mystery of Life. Very fascinating video by a team of scientists who discussed the impossibility of life forming by itself. Scan the QR code, and I hope you enjoy that presentation. Now, we march upward and onward with mutations to form mankind. Is that possible, scientifically speaking? to say that happened through time and chance over millions of years with the exchange of energy? Or which law of science is broken by this statement, wild statement? Let's look at mutations. What are mutations? Did you know that mutations are DNA errors, DNA damage? Did you know that 99.99999% of them cause immediate harm and damage to the organism? Like birth defects, inherited diseases. Is that upwards and onwards? Future generations are disadvantaged. Why? Because the damage is captured in the DNA and the damage gets passed on to the next generation. More damage, more mutations passed on to the next generation. So we're in a downward spiral, to be honest. Guess what? DNA and mutations also follow the law of entropy. If energy gets exchanged, it creates disorder in the DNA. What kind of energy am I talking about? Well, X-ray energy. X-rays cause damage to the DNA. Chemicals, swallow harsh chemicals, toxins, damage to the DNA. And so, energy gets exchanged and DNA gets disordered, messed up. Is it wise or clever to say that all the wonders we see around us came about through damage and disorder that was caused? I don't understand. Do you understand? Mutations are always a loss of DNA information. So, I highly recommend this video by Dr. John Sanford. He worked with manipulating genes for the benefit of crops. And he talks about the human genome and the decline in the human genes, how they have deteriorated, and they actually have models, massive computer models, in which they calculate the decline in human genes. So watch that video, very interesting presentation. Let's look at a quote or two. This person said already, 50 years ago, in the 70s, he already saw right through the smoke screens of evolution. He said, to improve a living organism by random mutation is like saying you could improve a Swiss watch, the most accurately manufactured watches on the planet. It's like saying you could improve that Swiss watch by dropping it and bending one of its wheels or the axis. Improving life by random mutation has the probability of how much? 0. Cannot happen, it will not happen. That's scientifically accurate to say that. Another one, already in the 70s, this person said, the educated public continues to believe that Darwin has provided all the relevant answers by the magic formula of random mutations plus natural selection, quite unaware, the educated public, of the fact that random mutations turned out to be irrelevant. It doesn't work. Dr. John Sanford again, the bottom line is that the Darwinian theory fails on every level. Mutations systematically destroy genetic information in DNA. The problem of genetic entropy, the law of entropy, remember? The problem of genetic entropy is powerful evidence that life and mankind must be young. He says, we have only deteriorated so much in our human gene pool, and we are quickly going down in a downward spiral. According to his model, in a few thousand years, it will be game over. That's how much damage has been done in a short period of time to our human genes through mutations. Last one, Dr. Michael Behe. Malaria resistance offers some of the best examples of Darwinian evolution, of what it cannot do. In this survival war fought by random mutations and natural selection, it is losing function, not gaining. What is he saying? He says malaria resistance. In some African states, the people have a resistance to the malaria parasite. Why? Because their red blood cells that are supposed to be nice, around, circular, almost like donut-shaped red blood cells, have mutated through DNA damage. They are now so warped that it's almost like the shape of a banana. They call it sickle cell anemia, and it's so small and warped that the malaria parasite cannot even survive in the red blood cell. Would you like to have those red blood cells in your body? They can't exchange oxygen properly, they're short of breath, and it's DNA damage. Their future generations will always be weakened. They will never get healthy red blood cells again. So, it is losing function, not gaining. And if evolutionists are so sure that mutations cause the upward evolution to form all the complex animals and us, mankind, and they even believe that we will evolve further into gods, well, I have a suggestion. Why don't we make a law and say that evolutionists, if they hold to that belief, they must put their money where their mouth is, and they must go for compulsory x-rays. Why do x-ray staff wear these lead aprons? To prevent mutations. And would it be wise to say all evolutionists, their wives and their children should go for compulsory x-rays? Especially if they're planning a family and they want to have children, they need to go for more x-rays. Not just weekly, like daily x-rays. Why? Because we're evolving. And there might be beneficial mutations that through natural selection makes us evolve into better human beings and eventually makes us evolve into gods. The evolution story, the evolution fairy tale is a hoax, the biggest hoax in the history of science. So, let's move on to summarize. Let's look at the evolution portfolio and make a firm conclusion or two. The Big Bang just thrashes the law of mass energy. To say that the Big Bang occurred is to invoke a miracle. They claim that the biggest miracle in the universe, in the history of the universe, happened. And they call that science. Millions and billions of years just violates the laws of friction. Remember, friction on Earth, everything that moves has friction. Proteins then self-assembled according to them. Well, that statement just severs the law of entropy. To say that that happened just invokes another massive miracle. Remember the Scrabble blocks? Scrabble letters? Then the first living cell supposedly formed by itself. Is that a scientific fact? Or is that foolishness to say that? That statement just annihilates the law of biogenesis and the law of entropy. It requires another massive miracle. And lastly, damage to DNA causes mankind and all life around us. That just defies the law of entropy. It requires miracle upon miracle upon miracle. This is a huge fairy tale, folks. Now, remember the objections? Second one, no! Evolution is science. How can it be a religion? Did you see science? I don't see science. I just see miracle, 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 miracle. And you remember the summary? Second part, evolution claims to reveal the truth about the origin of the universe and us humans by means of scientific, natural causes only. Well, what happened to the natural causes? I just see supernatural, 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 supernatural. What happened to the scientific causes, the natural causes? Therefore, let's conclude. Evolution actually uses supernatural causes to explain the origin of the universe and us, mankind. Remember, where did we come from? How did we get here? And they explain it through supernatural causes. Evolution is officially a religion. Fact. Next point. Evolution brainwashes the masses through the media by lying to them and saying, we only use science, we only use natural scientific causes. We are being honest and we are being scientific. I didn't see any science or natural causes. They lie to us. I just saw supernatural, and supernatural. Therefore, evolution is a dishonest religion. And if you think that is harsh, well, let's look at this dictionary definition. Oxford Dictionaries. A pagan is a member of a modern religious movement. Hint, hint. Who can think of a modern religious movement, something new, recent? Who seeks to incorporate beliefs, especially nature worship. Nature gets the credit. Nature is honored. Nature must be protected. We must be in awe of nature all the time. Nature did it by itself without any help. That's the definition of a pagan. And therefore, may I propose that evolution is a pagan religion. And this makes real sense if you go and compare it with the last step of the evolutionary process. No, we keep evolving into gods. It perfectly lines up with paganism and pagan religion. So, let's try to finish off. Remember this quote, religion versus science? Let's just fix that quote and put things straight. Actually, it is those, or the dispute is between those who, despite contrary evidence, support an evolutionist view based upon their religious beliefs versus those, that is us, who accept miraculous creation as supported by scientific observations. All the science we saw today, all the laws of science support miraculous creation. So this is a religion versus religion debate, not a religion versus science debate. So, everything came about miraculously, and that is a scientific fact. David knew this very well. Psalm 139, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. However, judgment is coming. Romans 1. For the invisible or miraculous things of him from the creation of the world are clearly understood by the things that are made, by the creation. If we look around us and we honestly observe creation around us, we have to conclude that there are invisible, miraculous things behind the scenes. So those who deny that will be without excuse. And my prayer is for you, if you have watched this presentation and you are an evolutionist or an atheist, that you'd be able to look at the stars and the heavens, and that you would come to the conclusion soon that the heavens declare the glory of Elohim, and that the skies proclaim the work of his hands. And also pray, thinking of John 3:3, where Yeshua said, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, you cannot see the kingdom of Elohim. You still have blinkers on your eyes, and I pray that soon you will turn to Yeshua and accept him as your Messiah, that you can be born again and that you can see the facts, that you can see the kingdom, the kingship of the Creator. Next time we will talk more, but we will approach this from a different angle. If we look at science, real science, honest science, that points to a Creator. And not only does it point to a Creator, it demands a Creator. So I invite you to join us for the next presentation. And to close, I just want to read Romans 11:36. For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever. And Amen.